Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa, and a very special welcome to our new South African viewers joining us on Open View. I'm James Creedon. Here are our headlines from across the continent this evening. Now, it was shaping up to be a major environmental catastrophe for the island of Mauritius. An oil spill from a Japanese ship that ran aground has now been stopped, but not after much damage was already done. We'll get the latest on that at the top of the show. Zimbabwe's opposition MDC party says it was snubbed by a South African delegation that visited Harare. This in the aftermath of anti-government protests. More on that a little bit later on. And one Congolese bodybuilder is working on making his sport part of the solution to fight crime by giving young men a healthy focus. Our team in Kinshasa went to meet the bodybuilding world champion, Hondi Rogenge. Thanks for watching. Now we start in Mauritius, where salvage crews have successfully pumped almost all remaining oil from a ship that ran aground there 2.5 weeks ago. But for almost 2 weeks, some 1,000 tonnes of oil was leaking from the Japanese-owned vessel. Vast stretches of protected wetlands have been fouled as a result. Some activists say a 30-year effort to restore an area of coastline has now been threatened. Claire Rush has the latest.
In a victorious race against the clock, salvage crews were able to pump the remaining oil, more than 1,600 tons worth, from the MV Wakashio. In recent days, containment efforts had received renewed urgency as the vessel began to crack. Grave environmental damage, however, has already been done. More than 1,000 tons of oil leaked from the ship after it ran aground off the coast of Mauritius 2.5 weeks ago. In response, volunteers mobilized in large numbers. Donning protective suits, they've been cleaning up beaches and working to put in place and create booms, floating barriers used to contain oil spills.
L'important là, c'est produire les boudins, envoyer les boudins, chercher les matériels pour pouvoir produire les boudins justement, et puis aider les pêcheurs, les plongeurs qui vont aller placer en mer.
Thick, black pools of oil have tainted the island nation's normally pristine turquoise waters, with environmentalists warning of a major ecological crisis. The country's prime minister says he will seek compensation from the owners of the vessel, Nagasaki Shipping, as the government faces mounting criticism for not taking immediate action when the ship ran aground on July 25th.
France has warned its citizens not to travel to Niger where possible. The Foreign Ministry said on its website that most of Niger was deemed a red, high-risk zone. The capital, Niamey, was classified as a relatively lower-risk orange zone. On Sunday, 6 French aid workers were shot at a wildlife reserve outside Niamey. Militants, including Boko Haram and an affiliate of Islamic State, are active in rural areas of the country. To Zimbabwe next, and continuing tensions there between the government and the opposition Movement for Democratic Change, or MDC. They feel snubbed by envoys sent to Harare from neighbouring South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa sent representatives to Zimbabwe, but they only had discussions with Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The MDC feel this was due to pressure from Mnangagwa, who was determined to quell opposition protests that have morphed into a Zimbabwean Lives Matter movement. Ryan Truscott has more.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa sent 2 envoys to meet with President Emmerson Mnangagwa on Monday. They held talks at State House for 2 hours and left the country without meeting the opposition. The main opposition MDC alliance says it assumes the envoys were told not to meet with them by the government, and it's seeing this as a deliberate snub. But South Africa's ambassador to Harare, Mpakama Mbete, is quoted in today's private daily news saying that's not the case. He says the envoys will come back to meet with other players in the future if the opportunity presents itself. When he appointed these envoys, who are former South African Deputy President Baleka Mbete and former Cabinet Minister Sidney Mufamadi, President Ramaphosa did say that they would engage not just with the government but with other relevant stakeholders. But the government spokesperson, Nick Mangwana, has since tweeted that special envoys to other countries usually just meet the head of state for a briefing and then leave. This is obviously a delicate matter for the South Africans. They don't want to be seen as siding with anyone. But on the other hand, as Zimbabwe's southern neighbour, any instability in Zimbabwe becomes a problem for them. President Mnangagwa and his government insist there's no crisis in Zimbabwe, or not a crisis caused by the ruling party. I think it's quite significant, though, that a cabinet minister and senior ruling party official in South Africa, Lindiwe Zulu, said this week that in the ANC's view, there is a political crisis here. The hand of the opposition has also been strengthened by the Zimbabwean Lives Matter hashtag movement. It's focused attention on the struggles faced by many people here, including detained anti-corruption activist Hopewell Chinono, who's being seen by many as a prisoner of conscience.
Time now for some other news stories from across the continent. In Mozambique, a key northern port has reportedly been seized by rebels with links to the Islamic State group. Government troops relinquished control of the city of Mocimboa da Praia under pressure from Islamist combatants. And this is the latest blow to the government in an ongoing conflict that threatens international plans to develop vast offshore gas fields in northern Mozambique. In South Sudan, clashes between soldiers and civilians have left 127 dead in the central town of Tanj. That's according to the army. 45 of those killed were security forces and 82 were youths from the area. The deaths occurred during an attempt to disarm civilians. Many communities have large stashes of weapons which they keep for protection against cattle raids. South Sudan is emerging from a 6-year civil war that has left almost 400,000 dead and displaced millions. Disarmament is one of the major stumbling blocks. Namibia's president has said reparations offered by Germany for mass killings in its then colony are not acceptable and need to be revised. German occupiers killed tens of thousands of indigenous Herero and Nama people in 1904 up to 1908. Historians have called it the first genocide of the 20th century. Germany has acknowledged that atrocities occurred, but Berlin has repeatedly refused to pay direct reparations, offering millions of euros in development aid instead to the Namibian government. Now, next to DR Congo and a look at a rising star in the world of sports. Our team in Kinshasa went to meet Hondi Rugenge. Last year, he became a bodybuilding champion of the world. And he says channeling the energy of young people into his sport can help fight crime and poverty in DR Congo. Let's take a look.
Meet Hondi Rugenge, better known as Tony Fitness. In this makeshift outdoor gym, this world champion teaches young men from his neighbourhood about bodybuilding. But here you won't find any fancy equipment. Dumbbells are made from scrap metal.
Par exemple, ces poids, nous partons dans des déchets des garages d'automobiles, les déchets qui sont déjà abîmés. Nous prenons ça.
Enough to build muscle and get the six-pack you've always dreamed of.
Lorsque tu te promènes dans la rue, beaucoup de gens quand même te fait quand même des beaux yeux, ils t'encouragent, tu vois, ça fait quand même bien.
Les gens tournent le cou pour voir comment vous êtes si beau et en quelque sorte, c'est en fait ça qui me motive à travailler le bodybuilding.
Many of these young people are unemployed, some are ex-offenders. Tony hopes that thanks to bodybuilding they can learn discipline and get ahead in life.
On leur montre qu'avec le sport, ça ne signifie pas que tu fais le sport pour aller te battre ou bien pour aller prendre l'histoire de quelqu'un d'autre. On fait le sport pour notre bien et en plus, on peut créer une carrière dans ce sport.
A career that's led Tony all the way to the top. He too comes from a modest background. Born in Bukavu in the east of the country, he's proud of all he's accomplished so far.
Bon, ça c'est la médaille que j'ai gagnée en Inde et ça c'est le trophée que j'ai gagné à Dubaï.
Tony now has his eyes set on Mr. Olympia, the world's most prestigious bodybuilding competition.
Aucun Congolais n'a foulé son pied sur le podium de Mr. Olympia. Et je voudrais bien gagner cette compétition. Et c'est ça mon rêve ultime.
Because of the pandemic, Tony won't be taking part in the 2020 edition of Mr. Olympia. He hopes to compete next year.
All right, that's all for this edition of Eye on Africa. It was produced by Tatiana Reiter. Thanks to her and all the team, and thanks to you for watching. Good night.